Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Homewrecker podcast, where we wreck and shatter conventional wisdom and ways of thinking by bringing alternative viewpoints and different subjects to light in an attempt to not only change the thoughts and feelings that most people accept as reality, but to obliterate them completely. the boom was
for our watchers.
Fantastic. Yes, you what do you call that? How do I verbalize that?
I don't know.
You made it explode with your hands.
Yeah, I did.
Up overhead. It was like a big nuclear explosion. Fantastic. I'm the Golden Greek Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing wife.
Hello.
My tag team partner in life. So, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic as always.
Not going to say my name?
I thought I did.
I thought you just said my wife. My tag team partner in life.
Monique.
Say my name. Say my name.
Can't believe I forgot to say your name.
I need a woman who needs no introduction and therefore will not receive one.
There you have it.
And there it is.
That's exactly how that goes. All right. So how are you doing?
As I said, I'm well.
You're well, great. And I'm fantastic as always.
Yeah.
What are we talking about this week?
This week, we're going to talk about the Witch of Pungo.
Okay. This when you first told me this, I'm like, this sounds crazy. Like Pungo? What the heck is this? Is this like some kind of...
What the fuck is a Pungo?
Yeah, what's a Pungo? Yeah, that was my first thought. So...
Well, it's a rural community in Virginia back in the 1700s.
See, I didn't think it was an American place, a place in America. I thought it was like I think Pungo immediately comes to mind as Congo. So I'm thinking something African perhaps. But then you said, no, it's Virginia. I'm like, what? Virginia? Pungo? Okay. So what about it? And then you kind of told me the whole story. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So why don't we go ahead and get into it? Tell us. So this was a witch.
Yes, an alleged accused witch.
So all right, we may as well just get into the story.
Yeah.
But is there like like people are haunted by this witch and stuff like that?
I'm going to share the story. I want to tell you why I was interested in it. I was looking for, I was actually looking for different cryptids for us to talk about in the show. And I came across this story because it was really weird. It was connected to like a type of historical website for the US. And I'm like, what? They have a thing on cryptids? That's weird. And then I saw her story and I'm like, oh, I'm not familiar with that. I want to learn about it. And I read it and it's a pretty interesting story to say the least. So I thought it would be fun to share because I don't know how many people are familiar with the Witch of Pungo.
I had never heard of it. Like I said, this was the first I'd heard of it. And so I was interested when you said it. I'm like, the witch, what the heck is that? Is that like the Bell Witch or is that like not the Blair Witch? Because that's obviously fake. That was a movie. But like the Salem witch trials, that kind of witch, or was it like an actual like a pagan practicing witch kind of thing? Like I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, we'll get into everything. And then like with what she was about, like as I read through the story, yeah, it's just a pretty amazing story. So I just wanted to share it with everyone for anyone who's not familiar with it.
All right, let's get into it.
All right. Born Grace White, she was the daughter of a literate carpenter in what would later become Princess Anne County, which is now modern-day Virginia Beach.
So you said a literate?
A literate carpenter.
Like a carpenter who can read.
Yes.
So back then, this was not something that was common, I guess?
In the 1600s, yeah, a lot of
illiteracy, a lot of people not able to read because really they didn't have to.
Yeah, they just did their work.
Right. So
in 1680, Grace married James Sherwood, who was an illiterate poor man who did not possess any land.
So he could not read.
No, he could not read and he had no land. So he must have had a great personality. That was a joke. Maybe a bad one.
I love that's it. Like that, like it's almost like in back then, if you didn't have any land, you were almost like a less than,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Now, John White was Grace's father, and John gave his son in law 50 acres of land when Grace and James married. And when John passed away, he left the couple the remainder of his estate.
So her father
Mm-hmm.
had so much land that he gave them 50 acres
Mhm.
when they got married. That's
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
Hey, 50 acres, that's nothing to sneeze at.
No, that's
That's a
a good
pretty
amount of
good
land.
chunk of land for sure.
And Grace was a mother of 3. She was a midwife. She grew herbs to help people and animals. She had
She
3
she grew herbs to help people.
Yeah, and animals.
You mean heal
I'm
people?
sorry, to help heal people and animals.
I mean, growing herbs, I guess that could be helpful, but
Yeah,
if you don't know how
to
to
help
use them
heal
or
people
what
and
to do with them,
animals.
okay.
And she had 3 sons, John, James, and Richard Sherwood, and they all lived in the rural community of Pungo,
Pungo.
Virginia.
Is
So
Pungo, Virginia still there?
no, because it's now Virginia Beach. It was like a community.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I've read. This whole area became
Wow.
modern day Virginia Beach.
Wow. I spent a weekend in Virginia Beach when I was younger. Interesting. So I could have possibly been near the Pungo Witch
Maybe.
or the Witch of Pungo.
But the fact that she grew herbs to help heal people and animals, I'm like, oh, so she was a good person and she was basically, yeah, because
Doing
that back
stuff.
then that was frowned upon.
Yeah. So she was doing things. So she
She
comes
was
from
ahead of her time.
so she comes from a literate family. I
Mhm.
presume if her father could read, he probably taught her and any other siblings how to read, or if his children, excuse me. So she could probably read, was educated, maybe read books about herbs or learned how to do it or whatever.
Mhm.
Usually people that once they get that knowledge and now they can actually go out and seek out information. Back then it was books mostly, obviously. But some of these illiterate folks who are not as educated and maybe don't understand or understand the things that are being done by people who can read books like growing herbs and using them
But
to
that it's not
heal
just
and
that,
to
it's
make
farming.
medicines. Right, but you could farm stuff but not know how to use it or what the medicinal uses for something are. So them not understanding that these herbs could be used to help and heal people, perhaps that's why she would maybe go
Well,
on to
it's a
get.
few things because also back then women, they didn't want women doing those things. That was a man's job.
There you have that
And
too.
also, there were no images of Grace, but it's believed she was tall, quite pretty, and intelligent. And it's thought
The
that
trifecta of doom.
the witchcraft rumors were spread by jealous wives.
So a bunch of the jealous housewives were intimidated by her and had to spread rumors.
Of
It
course.
couldn't be that she was just intelligent, that she knew how to read. That can't be it. Maybe perhaps who obviously was a driven person because she learned all
Well,
these things.
let me finish talking about her.
All right.
Grace and her husband were a nonconformist couple. James never held a position of public trust. Grace wore pants and used her herbs for healing, and it was not long before they would face many slanderous accusations from their neighbors.
What
So,
kind of accusations, I
oh, we're going to
wonder?
get there.
Oh,
So again, you have a woman wearing pants. Well, why did she wear pants? Because she was always working outdoors, growing herbs and planting. So that's what she was comfortable in.
okay.
So in 1706, Grace was formally accused of witchcraft. Grace was a midwife who was blamed by her neighbors for ruined crops, livestock dying, and bad weather. So they blamed her for everything. She was the scapegoat.
The
So
scapegoat.
how did all this happen? Let's first look at how Virginia handled witchcraft accusations.
So wait a second. So she gets accused of witchcraft, and that's it.
Well, I'm going to get into the story. I'm just kind of giving a little bit of background about her.
All right. So let's get into the story.
In Virginia, there were a few communities at that point, and most people lived on their own farms and plantations with either waterways or rough roads between them. Religious leaders did not oversee neighborhood arguments, The courts did. So the law was much more concerned with issues that could cause the breakdown of societal bonds such as gossip, slander, or adultery. Virginia did not execute their witches. Of the 19 witchcraft cases in the colony's history, all but one were acquitted. The man in question served jail time for a year and then was free to go. Witchcraft trials were time consuming.
So hold on a second. It was a man?
Yes, from that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was only one case. He was held in jail for a year and then free to go. So witchcraft trials were time consuming and divisive. So Virginia did not oversee them often. When they did, slander and hearsay were not accepted evidence. The courts made the burden of proof on the accusers, and those accusers could be then taken to court for slander. So it was a long and an expensive process, which is actually really good because it should be the burden of proof. If you're going to accuse somebody of something, you should have the evidence to back it up. So it kind of seems like they were on the right track with that.
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
The initial claim,
kind of the opposite of what's going on today.
Yeah. Yeah. So in regards to Grace Sherwood, the initial claim started in 1697 when a neighbor, Richard Capps, accused her of witchcraft when his bull died.
His bull?
His bull died and he blamed her, saying she was a witch. The court made no decision, but the Sherwoods took the Capps to court for slander and was settled. This was a cycle that would repeat a few times: accusation, court, acquittal, sue for slander, rinse and repeat.
Excellent.
Yep. In 1698, Elizabeth Barn took Grace to court, claiming she had turned into a black cat, snuck into her bedroom, and whipped her before jumping out through the keyhole.
What?
Yeah. Some reports that I read in some of the articles also said that Elizabeth Barn accused Grace of riding her like a horse as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So people believed this kind of stuff.
Well, this is what she accused. Now, maybe she was having a dream. Who knows? But the matter was resolved, and it failed. The suit failed, meaning that Sherwood had to pay for the court cost. So she got accused. Nothing happened. So Grace went to the courts accusing Elizabeth Barn of slander, but it didn't go forward. So she had to pay her own court costs.
Oh, okay.
In 1701, Mr. Sherwood died, and Grace inherited his property without remarrying. And this seemed to begin a new wave of witchcraft accusations, which could land her in jail. And some historians think that this renewed interest in making Sherwood guilty of witchcraft may have been due to the interest of taking her land. So we've talked about it before with other witchcraft trials, where if you have a woman who has her own land, a lot of people did not like that back then. They felt, as a woman, you should not have your own land. You should be married and the land belongs to the man. And also, if you're a couple and they don't think you're good enough, they don't like you, they would try to accuse you of being a witch to take your land.
It's pretty shady.
It is.
Bunch of jerks.
It's fucked up. So in 1705, Grace was involved in a fight with Luke and Elizabeth Hill. She took them to court for assault and battery, claiming Elizabeth had beaten her. On December 7th, 1705, she won a small amount for the court case, but it wasn't the full amount she wanted originally. So I believe she wanted 20 pounds and she received 5 shillings or something
so
like
this
that.
So this is obviously before there were dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm. Immediately after this happened, the word of witchcraft was thrown around Grace again. On January 3rd, 1706, Elizabeth Hill claimed Grace had caused her to miscarry. It is believed this accusation was due to Luke Hill not wanting to have his wife's reputation ruined. Luke petitioned the governor of Virginia to have Grace tried for witchcraft by his Williamsburg council.
Okay, so hang on.
Yes.
So they accuse her of being a witch?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want his wife's reputation ruined?
Yeah.
So your reputation would be ruined if you had a miscarriage?
No, because she was found guilty of beating her. Elizabeth Hill beat Grace.
That's okay.
Grace took them to court and won. And Luke didn't want his wife having a bad reputation for beating another woman. So they accused her of witchcraft by saying she caused his wife to have a miscarriage.
Got it. Okay.
Whether she really had a miscarriage or not, we don't know.
Right.
They just accused her of that.
Okay.
Which again,
I follow you now.
It's so messed up. Like
That's all you
back
had to
then,
do.
I don't like you. I'm going to call you a witch.
That's it. That's all you had to do. I mean, now you don't like somebody, you call them a Nazi.
Exactly.
Or a racist or whatever. That's
Rinse and repeat. Yeah.
People don't learn from the past.
Yeah. Broken record. So Grace was forced to show in a February 3rd, 1706 hearing. Grace's property was searched for any evidence of witchcraft, and it seems that they didn't find anything.
What would you say would be evidence of witchcraft? Like, what would they be looking for? Obviously, you were not alive back then, but if for you, were you able to find any information?
Well, I was curious in regards to Virginia specifically. Did they have their own laws stating what would be considered evidence? I couldn't find anything specific, but in general, a lot of times they're looking for black cats, some kind of familiar, which was believed was a demon that would help or assist the witch, and it could shapeshift into different things. Even like if you had a cauldron, they would try to accuse you of being a witch and saying like, oh, you have a cauldron, you're a witch. Ointments and salves, which she may have had using herbs.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes they would do that, and even go as far as if they had a broomstick.
that's it right there. That's the proverbial smoking gun is the broomstick.
If you want clean floors, then you are fucked.
Don't clean your floors, people.
Nope. Figure something else out. So March 12th, a panel of 12 quote unquote ancient and knowing women were brought forward as part of the jury to look for any devil's marks on Grace's body. So devil's marks back then, it could be a birthmark, a mole, freckle, anything, considered not normal by these women.
Okay.
The group found 2 marks as proof of her contract with the devil. And the 4 women of this group overseeing the search was Elizabeth Barnes, the same woman who had accused Grace of being a witch, saying she turned into a black cat, whipped her, and then jumped out through the keyhole.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that sounds not biased at all, right?
I think that's crazy. But I think before we go any further, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back and we'll hear more about the Witch of Pungo. We'll be right back. Hearers, watchers,
Homewreckers.
Like what you're hearing or watching so far and want even more Homewrecker content? Then check us out on Supercast, where you can get more exclusive bonus content starting for as little as $5 a month.
You'll get more of the content you love and also have access to exclusive episodes, listener-requested shows, watch-alongs, AMAs, plus special deals on Homewrecker Podcast merchandise and more. Visit homewreckerpodcast.supercast.com to sign up or click the link in our show notes.
We really appreciate your support.
We do.
So hit pause and go check out homewreckerpodcast.supercast.com right now.
Or click the link in the show notes. Thanks.
And we are back. Let's get back into the Witch of Pungo.
Yes. So even though these women found these marks, both the colonial authorities in Williamsburg and Princess Anne County justices were unable to confirm that Grace was a witch. In some other reading that I had done, it seems as though they tried calling in another panel, another jury of women to come in because they realized that it wasn't fair. Grace's attorney basically pointed out all the unfairness of everything happening. And so they decided to
That couldn't have been tough to do.
they decided to get 12 different women in, but they were unable to do it in the time that they had, which is why they were unable, in all fairness, they were unable to say whether she was a witch or not. So the case passed from county court to the Attorney General of Virginia without any judgment. And finally, on July 10th, 1706, authorities in Princess Anne County ordered that the accused be, quote unquote, ducked in consecrated water to determine her guilt or innocence. So by this ordeal, if she sank, she would be declared innocent. She'd be dead, but she'd be innocent. But if she floated, her identity as a witch would be proven. And something else I read, and I only saw it one other place, but she was allegedly quoted saying that she wanted that done. She said, yeah, go ahead and duck me.
She duck me.
Duck me, baby.
She requested to be ducked.
Well, she told, do it.
So the ducking is more like, is kind of like dunking, like today.
Well, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get into what they did to explain it, and it'll make more sense.
I'm just not going to ask any questions so you're done talking. Because any question I have, you're like, well, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get into it. Give me a minute. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Let me get there.
All right.
A spot in the Lynn Haven River off of what is today known as Witch Duck Point was chosen. And so a boat rowed out about 200 yards into the river, and Grace was tied cross-bound. So her hands and feet, she was all tied up, bound. Yes. And then she was dropped into the water in what was, quote unquote, above a man's depth. So I'm assuming more than like 6 feet deep.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Grace managed to untie herself and rise to the surface, proving to those present that she was a witch. Now, it was not a common thing for people like her at this time to know how to swim. However, what they failed to take into account was that Grace grew up on the waterway, so she knew how to swim. So uncertain of this result, she was thrown in the water a second time.
That's wow. So we're going to put you in. And if you get out, if you don't get out, you're innocent. We know you're not a witch. But if you do get out, damn it, you're a witch. And we're going to put you right back in again and see if you can repeat this.
2 out of 3, I guess.
Okay.
So upon the second time, the sheriff tied a 13-pound Bible to her neck to try to help her sink. Isn't that nice to try to help her sink? We really want you to be innocent. With a Bible, no less. A 13-pound Bible?
Isn't one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill? Isn't that like the first one?
Apparently they missed that chapter.
The irony.
Under the water, she instead got out of her bonds and swam up to the surface. And it said that the heavens opened and the crowd was drenched in a downpour as she broke to the surface. So at that point, Princess Anne County felt they had enough evidence to have her tried and convicted of being a witch.
That's all you need. If you survive our tests.
If you know how to swim, you're a witch.
If you survive our tests, we're putting you on trial. Damn it.
She was taken to jail before being transported to Williamsburg to stand criminal trial. As a punishment for her crime, Grace Sherwood spent 7 years in jail. After her release, the so-called Witch of Pungo, she became the so-called Witch of Pungo. Once she had paid back taxes on her land, she was allowed to return home in 1714. So not only did she have to go to jail for 7 years, they made her pay the back taxes. But on the bright side, that means they didn't give the land to the neighbors.
I guess that's a bright side, I suppose.
So screw you, neighbors.
I guess that's a bright side. What a raw deal, though. Like, you're convicted of being a witch. Now you're going to go in jail for 7 years. What? But you threw me in the water, and if I sank, I'd be dead. Mm-hmm. So I survived, and it's just so ludicrous on its face. But
yeah,
anyone with a logical, rational mind could probably pick up on that. Not many of us left out there.
Apparently. So Grace was one of only 5 female landowners in Virginia.
Ooh,
Grace,
wow.
yeah, only 5 female landowners. That should tell you a lot. Grace Sherwood stayed on her property and continued to work and farmed it until she died at the age of 80 in 1740.
Wow.
According to legend, however, when her son placed her body by the chimney, it was instantly whisked up away. And the only clue as to why was a cloven hoof print in the ashes by the coals. You know,
Wow.
that's a hunk of bullshit right there.
That's like a great legendary, like a legend, like a story that spawns a legend, if you
Yes.
will.
Grace's legacy may have stayed hidden if it wasn't for 2 women who ushered in the winds of change for Virginia's witch. Louisa Kyle wrote a children's book in 1973 called The Witch on Pungo, with tales relating to the history and legends of Grace Sherwood. Grace's legacy lives on in Virginia Beach through a statue at the corner of North Witch Duck Road and Independence Boulevard near Old Donation Episcopal Church. The statue depicts Grace with a basket of herbs and a raccoon beside her to represent her love for animals.
I wonder if people back then had raccoons as pets.
I don't know. I totally have a raccoon as
Because
a pet if I
raccoons look
could.
they look so cool. Like they have like the coolest, like the like almost like a mask fit. You know what I mean? Like
They're adorable.
yeah, they're really cool looking, but I don't know if they'd be friendly.
I'm gonna go on a side note. I don't know if I ever shared this before, but growing up in Dracut, we had a big tree across the street from our house, like right across from the driveway, and there was a hole kind of near the top. And there were raccoons that lived in it. And then, like one day, like these little babies would pop their head out and they made this noise. And I used to mimic the noise that they made, and they would come and pop their head out. And I would like talk to the raccoons by making that noise. And then my parents were like, Monique, don't go near the raccoons. They could have rabies.
That's kind of cool though. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I'm so glad. It's like I wasn't around back then, but I actually in a past life was in the 1600s. And
this was Drake at Massachusetts.
yeah, Dracut, where I was talking to the raccoons in this present life.
Yes. Yeah, no, I was just saying it was Massachusetts.
Yes.
Just for anybody that is not from around here and doesn't know what you're talking about.
So another person who helped, Belinda Nash, did a lot of work for Grace Sherwood. She was the founder of the Ferry Plantation, who wrote a biography, A Place in Time, on Grace and petitioned 3 governors for over 20 years to get her name cleared.
So they basically read the stories of Grace and realized obviously this is all erroneous. She didn't do anything wrong. She was just
because everything's documented by the court. So there's historical documentation just showing the ridiculousness of it all. So on July 10th, 2006, Governor Tim Kaine restored Grace Sherwood's good name 300 years to the day since the ducking ordeal that condemned her to witchcraft or for witchcraft.
Wow.
Now, according to local stories, her legend doesn't end there. Some say Grace returns to visit her ducking spot every July and can be seen as a spot of light dancing on Witch Duck Bay.
Does anybody have any pictures of this? Were you able to find any videos or anything that anybody says they got of this?
I didn't.
Very interesting. Wow.
So anyone listening from Virginia, if you know about this, you have any like videos of that, pictures, send it. Yeah.
Share them with us. We'd love to see it if you do. Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. It's just kind of one of those things, like just shows you how crazy stuff used to be. And again, it's kind of starting to get back to that
in different ways.
Yeah. Just in the irrational way that people act in regards to certain things. Very interesting.
When you think about it, it's almost very immature and childlike. Like, I have a problem with you. I don't like how you are. And I don't mean like, because regular children don't necessarily act like that, but it's kind of like that immaturity. And it's just like, I'm going to try to screw you. That's what it is. I'm going to figure out how I can screw you. And what do people do nowadays? They have cancel culture. You know, they use social media to slander people because they have a problem with them, whether it's a legit problem or not.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Pretty messed up. Well, so she wasn't a witch, obviously. I mean, maybe she was, but based on all the documentation.
She was a healer. Oh, I forgot to mention, I did read a couple things that quoted her where she said, I ain't a witch. I'm a healer.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. Huh.
And that's
Imagine that.
how many women were accused of witchcraft who were healers. Me, I'd be accused of witchcraft if things are still like they were today. I'd totally be accused of witchcraft because
Sure.
I grow herbs and plants and I use them for healing.
You do Reiki.
I do Reiki. I do
Oh, no.
hypnotherapy.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
I read tarot.
You're my modern day witch,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you would call it that.
One of the things, I think we were having this conversation the other day, and I was like, if people were really afraid of witches, don't you think they'd keep their mouth shut because they wouldn't want the witch to like curse them and do bad things to them?
Yeah, that's the that's where the educated logical mind comes into play, because again, I think when a lot of those people don't have educations and they don't know how to think, the first thing that they fall for is fear and fear tactics. So perhaps an educated person who didn't have the best of intentions could manipulate the townsfolk to go after an enemy, and that was the way that they would do it. The mob mentality takes over, right?
But if you were truly afraid that somebody was a witch and had these powers of Satan and could kill your livestock, wouldn't you be afraid if you accuse them, they would kill you too?
Right. Yeah. You wouldn't want to call them out. Right.
Yeah.
But again, that's thinking logically.
You would want to be their best friend.
Those folks were not thinking, well, she was really a witch. She could just escape. She could just kill us, kill our family, ruin our crops, do all this stuff. But instead, they were thinking, we got to kill her because she's going to do it. Like, wait, what? It doesn't line up. The logic is all just a mess. But
it is. And again, there's just so many people who unnecessarily died because of that. And then even not only with the witch trials, but just in general, think about how many women were like attacked, and vigilante groups that didn't bring women to justice because they were healers, and they just made that decision then and there, we're going to kill them, because that happened.
Of course it did. Sure. I mean, that kind of stuff, I'm sure, probably still happens, just in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's scary. But again, it's one of those things. It's good to when we find stories like this, and it's kind of good to try to get them out into the consciousness, just so people kind of can realize that it can get back to that if we're not careful. If we're not careful, we can go back to those ways. Yeah. Maybe you got a computer and a laptop and a phone and all this like great technology around you, but mentally you could go back to this place if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place to be.
You can devolve.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And remember, it's not just, it's essentially how we've evolved to be where we are now. We can devolve the same way with lack of education, with bending to fear and superstitions. It can get back to that real quick as we pass those on to our children, and then they pass it on to their children, and they get more and more fearful and less educated and less rational. And it can be
unable to use logic with things. And
it can be a scary, scary time. I'll tell you what, why don't we take a quick break? Okay. We'll come back, and I want to talk about something kind of weird that happened to us recently.
Yes.
All right. So we'll be right back.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Innerstandings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
And we're back. So I wanted to talk about something kind of weird that happened to you and I, actually. And this was about 2.5 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
it was about a few weeks. Yeah, 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay, we'll say 2-3 weeks ago. And I just keep forgetting to bring it up on the show. So we're outside shoveling, and it was early morning, probably about what, 9:30, between 9:30
Yeah, it was
and
between
10.
9 and 9:30.
And we have kind of a longer driveway, so we split the duties. You take one half, I took the other half. And I always, when I go outside to shovel or really do most yard work or anything like that outside, I always have my headphones in. So I was listening to, I think, music or maybe a podcast, whatever. Anyway, I had my headphones in, so I wasn't really. I would look up every time, I'd take a shovel, toss it, toss the load, whatever, and look over at you, and always look up at the door to see if one of our kids is looking, trying to get our attention or whatever. But ears, not really listening, except for what's in my earbuds, ear headphones, whatever. And so you came over to me and you said, "Do you hear that?" I said, so I take my headphone. I'm like, "What?" And you're like, "Do you hear that?"
Okay, first, let me just say, so every time, because I don't typically listen to anything when I'm outside, I want to listen to nature. I just kind of want to be in there, even if it's like so it was snowing and then it turned into rain and we were trying to get the shoveling done because the snow got heavy. I was soaked to the bone. I mean, my coat, like all my clothes were just soaked, but I didn't care. I'm outside, nature's cleansing me, and I like to listen. But every time I go to talk to him, he like, what? Huh? I'm just like, so I have to repeat myself. I have to stop, wait for him to take his headphones out, and then repeat myself.
Yes. So that's what happened this
So
day. So why don't you describe to everybody what was going on, what we were hearing, or what you heard that you came over to call my attention to?
the sound in the sky got really weird. And all of a sudden, I hear this weird horn kind of sound, almost like it's some kind of like air raid horn or like, I don't know, but it wasn't a car horn. And I'm like, it's not church bells. It's because they have bells. This is more of like a weird horn sound. It's not a fire truck sound. It was just very bizarre, and it was weird because like we're by an airport and there are planes that can make sounds, but it's nothing I've ever heard. It was the weirdest horn kind of sound, and I'm like, do you hear that?
But how long had you been hearing it before you came over to get me to see if I
Maybe
had
about
heard it?
30 seconds, because I was trying to figure out what it was. I'm like sitting
Okay.
there like going through everything in my mind. What could this sound be?
So when I took my headphones out and started listening for it, I heard it right away when you said, "Do you hear that horn?" And that's when I took my other one out because I had one in and one out, and I took them both out. And I'm listening, and yeah, I could hear it. It was, and it's like you said, it was almost like the pressure when I took my headphones out, like my ear pressure got weird,
And the air felt weird
and the
too at
air
that
felt
time.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was almost like I didn't notice
It
anything
felt like
because I had
thicker
my
and
headphones in
heavier.
at first, and then taking them out, it felt like the pressure, like almost not my ears didn't pop, but I could feel a difference, and it was very noticeable, very palpable. And so I could hear it right away, and it was a very like you said to me, it's not, it sounds like an air raid siren kind of, but it's not that. And I'm listening and I'm like, I didn't get the air raid siren sound. It sounded more like a horn, like a big
It was a
horn. It
continuous
was a
horn sound.
continuous
It
horn
wasn't like a
sound. Yeah.
siren. It was like a note playing. just
Right.
like a horn going continuously for like 2 minutes.
Yes, and it went for a good minute
Yeah.
or so from when I started listening to it. It was just like, what is that? And it seemed almost like we said, the pressure in the air was different,
And
and the surrounding sounds almost seemed kind of.
because I listen to nature, and it's the sound of like the rain coming down and how it like touches on everything and the trees and the wind. And it was like all of that stopped. But
Yeah,
it was like, and we had talked before about an incident that happened, was it a
over the
year
summer.
ago?
Yeah, over the summer.
Where again, something weird like that happened, but it was like the way the sound was, it was almost like an echo chamber. This was a little different. It reminded me of that, but it was different because this was like weird. Like you could feel the pressure in the atmosphere. And again, it was continuous. It didn't like kind of go down and come back up. It just was one, like some kind of horn just going, like
It
2
didn't.
minutes.
It didn't sound like that.
Like that. I'm just trying to do as continuous sound.
It didn't
It
sound
was
at
like
all
the
like that.
weirdest sound. It was like, I don't
It was
know.
very eerie, almost. I had heard about people hearing horn sounds. I had heard about it. I don't know if I'd ever mentioned it to
No,
you in the
I
before
never
this
knew
time.
anything until after.
Because I had heard about those. And some people call them like, oh, they're the devil's horns or something. I've heard that.
Angels, trumpets.
I've heard angels, trumpets. I'd heard it's the warning sign for the apocalypse. I've heard all kinds of things, and I'd heard clips of them and stuff like that. And this was very similar to that, but never anything that I'd heard before, like any of those clips that I'd listened to in the past. This was along the same lines, but just not that same pitch. And I don't know if that's just because of our location and where it was originating from or what, but it was very bizarre. And I went and I looked to see if anybody else had reported anything like that. We have that neighborhood app, I think it's called, something like that, whatever it's called. And I have an account on there, and I went on just to see if anybody else had mentioned it or anything. And no, nothing at all. Same thing over the summer when we had that other incident with the weird air pressure and the sound getting all weird. Nobody mentioned it at all. So I wonder if people if they're in their homes, they're not hearing it, because I could see if we were inside, we wouldn't have heard it.
Yeah, and the other weird thing is, like, I think we were the only ones out that early doing
We were.
anything.
We
didn't.
None
see
of our
anyone
neighbors
else.
were out. Nobody on our street was out yet, because the snow had just stopped and had turned to rain. And I guess people we were planning to get out for that time anyway.
Well, I wanted to get out so
but
it didn't get too heavy.
Sure, but none of our other neighbors had gone out yet, so we were out there before everybody else. There was nobody else that I could see around that we could say, "Hey, do you hear that?" It was just us. So it's just very bizarre.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, like, what was that? What could that have been? And yeah, it was just very weird, very strange. And when the sound stopped, the pressure
everything went back to normal.
went back
The
to
sound
normal.
came back.
Sound came back.
It was bizarre.
Very
And what's
weird.
really weird is I completely forgot about it again. And that's what happened last time. I totally forgot about it until you reminded me. So a couple of weeks go by, and you saw something that mentioned like the
horn sound,
in the sky. And I was like, oh yeah, that happened. I just totally forgot about it again. And so that's when I started looking into it. And I actually reached out to a couple friends just to see, like, hey, have you experienced anything like this? So I want to put it out to all of our hearers and watchers. Have you experienced like hearing the horns in the sky sound? Because I have a few theories on what it could be, but I want to hear about other people's experiences. So if you have experience, please reach out to us and let us know, because I want to try to put pieces together and figure out, like, where is this happening? When is it happening? And I want to do some research on this. So please, if you've experienced this, and let me know, like, did you notice a change in pressure? Was there anything different that happened? Did the sound change, or was everything normal and you just heard like a horn sound coming from the sky?
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I can think of where the sound changes or the sounds of nature stop is hearing about it or reading about it in the Missing 411 books, where all of a sudden the forest just goes still and quiet, and it's just different. So I wonder if whatever that we experienced is something along the same lines. Maybe, I don't know. Just it's just very bizarre, and it just really gets me shaking my head now. When I told you I had heard of these things and these sounds in the past, just read stories about them, watched videos, and heard audio of them. They were mostly in Russia. Was one of the places where the sounds were very prominent and heard by a lot of people. In Alaska, I'd never heard of it being anywhere else. It's not like you don't hear about it in like the Midwest or on the coast or anything like that. You don't hear about it in the States really. I mean, unless you count Alaska, but again, that's not down here in the 48, states down here. But yeah, it's just very bizarre. But that was the only thing I could think of was it's got to be that. But what is
What is that?
that?
Well, I question. We have a nuclear power plant in Seabrook, New Hampshire.
It's about 45 minutes from us.
But I'm like, if they were doing like a practice siren, like some kind of practice thing,
I
would we be
don't-
able to hear it? And why would it cause that weird pressure change and the sound to stop everywhere? Especially like if rain is coming down, like wouldn't that buffer that sound to like coming to us?
Yeah, you
I
would
don't
think.
know.
And I mean, we don't have any. We have an Air Force base, which is, again, it's about an hour from us. And again, we have the nuclear power plant, which is about 45 minutes or so from where we are. But we never heard any sirens or anything like that in
And there
the
was nothing
past.
sent out saying they were doing like the city was doing some kind of test, like
Yeah,
sound like our
nothing like that
siren
at all.
thing. So, because I looked and yeah, it was just,
But it wasn't a siren. That's the thing. It was a horn.
yes, but I'm trying to find like what could it be? What are some logical reasons?
It was almost like a giant French horn or something, like just
yeah,
blowing a continuous
continue
note.
like nonstop.
Yeah, like that's what the sound was. And we actually have what do you call them, those doorbell camera deals, and anytime like a car drives by or an animal walks by in the backyard, it'll set off a motion sensor and it'll capture video. So we were hoping that we would capture some of it on video, because where I was shoveling in the back, you got the camera got a recording of you coming up to me and talking to me. We would think we did that. That's like the only part of that morning, the only video that didn't capture.
I know.
So that was kind of
weird. Like every
weird
other
as
time
well.
I came over, it got me, but not that time.
That one time where we needed the minute and a half, 2-minute clip,
like try to get that audio because it picks up audio.
Yeah, it didn't get it. It didn't get the video clip. That was like the one video that didn't come in that morning.
And again, I didn't have my cell phone on me,
Very strange. And I didn't think to pull my cell phone out and record it. Because you're busy at that point, going, what
the fuck is that?
What the fuck? Yeah, trying to figure out like what is that? And yeah, very bizarre. So that would happen to us.
It did. So if anything like that's happened to you, you've heard this mysterious horn sound coming from the sky, let us know, and please share your experience with us. Give us all the details, as much information as possible, because I'm going to be digging in to do some research on this. I really want to try to figure out what the hell's going on.
Okay, so I'll reserve my thoughts about what I think it probably is for
that show,
a later show.
Yes.
All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about before we call it a day?
No, I think I want to end on that note.
Fair enough. Sounds good.
Let it resonate with people.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well then, until next time, I am the Golden Greek, Alex Arion. I've been joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing tag team partner for life, my beautiful wife, the lovely Monique.
And you've been listening to the Homewrecker podcast.
We love hearing from and interacting with our hearers and watchers. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter
at Homewrecker Pod.
You can also visit our website,
homewreckerpodcast.com,
where you can check out past episodes and pick up some Homewrecker podcast gear from our online store.
Also, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're hearing or watching our show. That way you can be notified whenever a new episode drops. We're on all major podcasting platforms, and you can check out the video versions of our show at YouTube and Brighteon.
You can also find Monique in a few places online as well.
I'm on Twitter @_Monique Giselle_. If you're interested in a tarot reading, organite, incense, candles, and other cool things, you can go to my website, tarotbymonique.com. Or if you're interested in hypnotherapy, you can go to understandingshypnosis.com to schedule a free 20-minute consult. And follow me on Twitter @MoniquePCHT. And Alex, how can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @TheAlexArion, and you can check out my website, alexarionfitness.com.
And if that's too much to remember, we get it. That's why we put it all in our show notes.
Thanks for spending your time with us, and we appreciate all of your support.
We do. Thank you. We love you.